Hi, this is Dan Lynch. Join us for FLOSS Weekly, where Jonathan Bennett and I will be talking to the developers of Dancer, a Perl web framework that makes it quick and easy to deploy web applications. That's coming up next, so stick around, make yourself comfortable, don't go anywhere, and stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is FLOSS Weekly, episode 542, recorded Wednesday, August 14th, 2019. Dancer. This episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology's Advanced Technology Center is like no other testing and research lab, with more than $500 million of equipment, and it's virtual, so you can access it 24/7. To learn more and get insights into all that it offers, go to wwt.com/twit. And also by NetScout. Meeting the digital demands today starts with a bold, new IT strategy. NetScout is delivering a new perspective, visibility without borders, to guide your digital success and data center transformation. Get seamless visibility and monitoring for performance and security. See how at netscout.com. Hey, welcome to another episode of FLOSS Weekly. This is FLOSS Weekly, episode 542. My name is Dan Lynch, and I'm your host for today. And I've always introduced myself as the kind of substitute host or replacement host or whatever, and it seems to be becoming more and more regular. So I don't know, maybe I need to upgrade my status somehow. I'll speak to my agent about that. We'll see. But yeah, it's great to be back. And I'm not alone, which is good, because it wouldn't be much of a show if I was. I'm pleased to say that the man who is fast becoming the backbone of FLOSS, I would say, he seems to be here most weeks. He's always asking great questions, and it's great to have him back again. Jonathan Bennett is with me. Jonathan, how you doing?
Hey, Dan, I'm good. It's good to be here. Boy, this would be a tough show to do alone. I'm glad there's two of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I have been known to talk to myself at times, but not for an hour. I mean, I suppose I could for an hour. But yeah, it's great to have you back on. Randall's unfortunately a little under the weather this week, but he'll be back soon, we hope. And it's a real shame, because today you're stuck with me, and it's a Perl show, which is really, you know, as everyone knows, Randall is the Perl guru. So around here, so it's a bit of a shame. Jonathan, what's your Perl knowledge like?
I was inspired way back in the day. So FLOSS Weekly has been around long enough that I can talk about FLOSS Weekly way back in the day, or I'm young enough. I'm not sure which way it goes. Way back in the day, I was inspired by Randall and FLOSS Weekly to start learning Perl. And I've actually done a little bit of web development with Perl, mod Perl, and all of that. So I know just enough about the topic today to make me dangerous.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. So our guest for today is Dancer, or Dancer 2, I should say, which is a Perl web framework. And I've been frantically doing my research this afternoon and looking up, various different things to do with it. It's a Perl web framework, as I said, which is, I mean, I'm not completely out of touch on this. Web frameworks is kind of my area, but Perl not so much. So hopefully we'll gel on that and we'll cover that. But it looks really cool. Have you learned anything about Dancer? Have you looked at it at all?
Just enough to know that it's a Perl-based web framework. I have lots of questions.
Excellent. Well, that's why we do these shows. I mean, if we knew the answers, then we could just sit here and literally talk to ourselves probably and tell you the answers, and that wouldn't be much fun, would it? So there is that. So yeah, we'll get on and talk to our guests in a minute and ask them about Perl, about Dancer, Perl Dancer. But before we do that, I want to thank our first sponsor. This episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. WWT began building their Advanced Technology Center, ATC, 10 years ago, and it has grown exponentially. The lab contains more than $500 million in equipment. It's like no other testing and research lab. WWT is a trusted partner who stays with you over the years. Many of their customers have been with them for over a decade because they know WWT is where they can go to get the answers they need to make sure their business runs right. Their ATC is an incubator for IT innovation. Hundreds of on-demand and schedulable labs representing the newest advances in multi-cloud architecture, security, networking, primary and secondary storage, data analytics and AI, DevOps, and so much more. Learn about the products before you launch. WWT's engineers use these environments to quickly spin up proofs of concept and pilots using the sandbox so customers can confidently select the best solutions. In many cases, this reduces concept time from months to weeks, which increases speed to market. They offer Lab as a Service, a dedicated lab space within the ATC. Here, customers can perform programmatic testing using the vast technology ecosystem that WWT has already built. It's virtual, so you can take advantage of ATC's unique benefits anywhere in the world, 24/7. WWT engineers work in these labs every day, beta testing new equipment and building reference architectures and custom integrations to help their customers make decisions and see results faster and with much less investment. The time is finally here. WWT has launched their new digital platform encompassing the ATC ecosystem. This ecosystem creates a multiplier effect of knowledge, speed, and agility, anytime, anywhere, and around the world for their customers. Get access to articles, case studies, hands-on labs, and other tools that make the difference in today's fast-paced world. To learn more about worldwide technology and to join the ATC ecosystem, go to wwt.com/twit and create an account today. WWT simplifies the complex. That's wwt.com/twit. WWT, delivering business and technology outcomes around the world. And we thank them for their support of Floss Weekly. All right, then, so we should go ahead and bring on our guests. We've got two guests today, Jason A. Crome, a.k.a. Crome Dome, and Sawyer X from the Perl Dancer Project. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us today.
How's it going?
Okay, then. So, hey, good. So first up, I'll do. Randall always likes to know where people are from and where they're talking to us from. So I should ask you first up, Jason, where are you calling us from?
I'm from just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm originally from Chicago, recently relocated here about the last year and a half. So loving it here in Charlotte.
Excellent. And Sawyer, where are you speaking to us from?
So I'm currently in Israel. I'm in Tel Aviv, in the tallest building in the country. I've been living in Amsterdam for about 5 years, and then I came here, and like things are kind of wild all the time. So currently Tel Aviv, Israel.
Excellent. And you mentioned you're in the tallest building. So do you get awesome like mobile signal there?
It's pretty good mobile signal. The interesting thing is that I can see traffic all the way to home, so I know when I should leave.
That is really useful. That is very useful. If you set up a webcam from there, you could check the traffic from home when you go into work as well. Maybe, I don't know. That's just a thought. You never know. All right, then, guys. So we're here to talk about Dancer 2 specifically. So first of all, it'd be good to get a kind of 50-foot, 50,000 foot even view of what Dancer 2 is. So who wants to take that one and tell us what it is, what it does, what kind of solution, what kind of problems we're trying to solve when we reach for Dancer?
Okay, I can try to start with that. And Jason, just chime in when I get it wrong. So basically, the idea of Dancer is to provide a thin, simple wrapper for writing the web controllers and all the web logic to connect to your core application. So we provide nice syntax, really nice syntax. In most cases, people don't notice. It takes a while till they notice, wait a minute, this is Perl. And it's very thin, it's very clean, and the idea is to make it seamless for you to just write code and just bring it up to the web. It has the routing logic, it has all of these niceties on working with cookies and sessions, and it's fully pluggable. So the idea is that you could use any session engine, you could use any database, you could use any logging service that you want, etc. And that's kind of the idea behind it. It's often referred to as a ultra-light web framework.
Excellent. And was it inspired by any other projects?
Yes. So actually, the story of it is interesting. It started from Ruby. In Ruby, there's a really nice, also thin web framework called Sinatra, and the person who created Dancer and Dancer 2, he's also a programmer in Ruby. And at some point, he was like, "Well, I wish I had all these really nice things in Perl as well." So he just ported Sinatra into Dancer and called it into Perl and called it Dancer, and since then it grew into it having its own extra features and really cool stuff like that. But if you're using Ruby, I really recommend also looking at Sinatra. It's very similar, very nice.
Excellent, excellent. So how did you become involved in the project then?
So we each have our own stories. I'll let Jason share his after. For me, it was I was using Catalyst, which is another web framework in Perl, and it's kind of the more Django-like, big one, familiar, stable. And I wanted to use it for a very small project, and I didn't want to set up the entire environment. So I was looking around, and I found on CPAN at the time, which is where we upload all of our modules, I found Dancer, and it looked really nice, very slick. So I tried using it, and I had to use it on CGI, and I didn't know how to configure it. And I wrote a blog post saying, I just can't do it, and I wish I could because it looks really nice. The same day, I was out with my partner at the time, and I was kind of looking through, and I found that someone wrote a blog post, how to do this. And I realized it is the person who wrote it answering me saying, okay, he doesn't know how, but it is possible. Here's how you do it. And I loved it. It was such a sweet way to interact. Because usually we kind of take things personally. When, I produce something, you don't know how to use it, and then you write that it can't do it. Usually we get offended. But he was not offended at all. He was really nice. And then I went on the ARC chat, and we talked, and I tried to fix an issue. I suggested a feature, and eventually you kind of get indicted into the club. And I think that Jason would share his experience.
Yeah. So tell us, how did you get involved then, Jason?
Okay, so originally, probably like 2011, 2012, the company I was working for at the time, I developed a web application in Dancer. And originally, I had been a member of the CGI application community way back in the day. Stepped away from the Perl community for a little bit, came back, was looking for another lightweight counterpart, found Dancer. And I just kind of lurked at that time, and I stepped away from Perl again for a little bit, and fast forward to 2015 maybe, and I come back to Perl and web development, and I see that Dancer 2 is out. And Dancer 2 is still in its infancy at this time. And so I'm undertaking a new project. And as I'm working with Dancer 2, it's like I find a doc change here and there. So I start sending this constant stream of pull requests. And Sawyer hits me up one day and says, hey, this is awesome. Really appreciate all of these changes you're sending us. Keep it up, and we might have to induct you into the core team. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so never one to back down from a challenge. I keep sending a stream of pull requests, and he reaches out to me again a week or two later, and he says, it's been decided you need to become a part of us. And so I joined the Dancer core team at that point, and I've been with them ever since.
Excellent. I'm intrigued by the idea of induction. Does that involve like an assault course or a special mission that you have to complete or something like that?
No, you have to let me crash at your place.
Oh, okay.
I got to stay Excellent. At multiple people's houses, so now this is the thing.
Excellent. So you could say you're just testing the backups there, or testing the failover position, failover solutions for various things. Excellent. All right. And so I noticed it's called Dancer 2 and not like Dancer, 2.0, like version 2 or something like that. You actually kind of renamed the project to Dancer 2. Is that right? Did I get that right? And why did you do that if that was the case?
Yes. So very observant. So originally it was Dancer. It still exists. But what we noticed is that the design that we ported from Sinatra was really good for small websites. And over time, people started using it for really serious things. So like they wrote big websites with it. And when we wanted to build big websites with it, we kind of saw the limitations of the architecture and the design. There was too much shared state. We had to kind of work around things that could have been security issues if you were crafty enough. And we kind of worked around all of those, but we didn't want to have to work around things. We wanted something that is stable and you could use it to build things that are millions and millions of requests. So we eventually decided, instead of just making an upgrade that changes the design, we're going to create a new one. Almost all of the syntax is the same. It's just internally it's structured differently. And we decided to just call it Dancer 2. The jury is still out on whether it's good to call your project 2 in the name or 3 in the name than to upgrade with something that could possibly break things. But this is what we decided. For most cases, porting from Dancer 1 to 2 is just changing the loading of the module in Perl to just using Dancer 2. And that kind of resolves almost all cases.
Oh, that's good, because I mean, you've answered another question I was going to ask there, which is, do people still use like Dancer or the Dancer One or whatever you want to call it?
Well, yes, they do. I think it's hard for us as technologists to upgrade. We're really worried about upgrading. We're really worried about upgrading when the name is not exactly the same. And I think it's very interesting from a sociological perspective. But what we've started doing is whenever someone started porting things, moving from Dancer to Dancer 2, when they noticed, oh, you know what, this word, actually it's spelled a bit differently here, or that function doesn't make sense here, you need to use that function. Those small bits that they've realized, we started collecting them as a document. So now you can actually go on metacpan.org, just like you see Dancer 2, there's also Dancer 2 migration. And that's basically just the community sharing with each other how they quickly migrate.
Excellent. It's I mean, that's the great thing about these open source projects, is watching people share practices, change things, evolve, and all of that is awesome. So it's doing pretty well. You've got quite a big community around it. So how big is the kind of community? So I'm going to direct this one to Jason. I don't want you to feel neglected. So Jason, how's the interaction there? You getting a lot of people trying to contribute to the project and so on?
Yeah, and I see a lot of that. I've kind of taken on the release manager role within the project, so I'm frequently interacting with different members of our community. I want to say that we probably have several hundred contributors to the project at this point in one way or another, either through bug fixes, feature additions, documentation patches, and we have a IRC is not always the healthiest, happiest place, but I want to say we've got a really good community of users there. Not just us, but if the Dancer developers are away, our community members are really good and step up and help out and answer questions for everybody. It's probably one of the nicest communities I've been a part of online.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed actually is the documentation is really great on the website. I've been reading through your documentation today and looking at some of the resources that you've got on there. Is that important to you guys as the kind of? I know documentation. I seem to say this on every show. I know a lot of people don't see documentation as very interesting or fun or maybe the sexiest thing to work on, but it's really important to projects. So you're doing a great job of it. Is that something that you've aimed at specifically to try and get that back up right?
Yeah, and I think as a reference documentation, we've done a really awesome job. I think our documentation is really good if you know what you're looking for, and if you're new to the project or new to web development, it probably has some warts in a couple of spots. We've actually got a project going on right now to improve our documentation, and it's. What we have now is going to be more of a supplement to that. We're taking the approach with our documentation enhancement that you might be new to Perl, you might be new to web development, you might be new to Dancer. And so we really want to walk people start to finish to what is a web application, what goes into developing a web application, and how you can use Dancer to achieve those goals.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds excellent. I mean, I actually looked specifically at some of the stuff on there you've got for like, say, Python developers. I looked at one of Sawyer's talks. One of your slides is on there. If one of your old talks is Perl Dancer for Python developers, and I thought, great. And that was a really nice, easy way to get in. So are you having success at kind of getting people to come across and try it out who maybe not even specifically Perl developers as such, get them way into Perl?
At Charlotte Perlmongers, we get a bunch of people that aren't just Perl developers. Actually, we've had some designers crash our Perlmongers meetings, and I've actually been able to show them either through the talks that I've given or as an aside after the meeting about how they can use Dancer to help them rapidly prototype their website designs.
Excellent. And I'm vaguely, I've had a little play with Catalyst in the past, and then I got a bit into Mojolicious. So how would this compare to something like, say, Catalyst or Mojolicious or one of the other Perl web frameworks that people might know?
I'm going to let Sawyer answer this question. I'm capable, but I think he's going to give a much better answer to this than I can.
I doubt it. I'll try it. I do want to share one funny anecdote. We've had one complaint on our GitHub because someone said that it was just too much documentation. And that was kind of harsh for us to hear, especially when they wanted their money back. That was the weirdest thing. And we didn't really know how to deal with that. But what he did tell us, and this is kind of why we went into this overhaul of documentation that Jason is mentioning, we kind of said, okay, we wrote a lot and it's really nice, but you know what, it might just be too much, and we want to kind of, make it a bit more concise, make it a bit clearer and easier to follow. Because if we have like the tutorial and we have the manual and we have the quick start and we have it might be too much. And you might not know where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to look for. So this is kind of where a lot of this comes from. Also, it's the first time I've ever been asked for my money back on a free and open source software. So, okay.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of web frameworks in Perl. I should say this. Perl is known for being like really old, but there's a ton of new, interesting, fascinating modern web frameworks. There are 3 that are very synonymous with Perl and in the Perl community. That's Catalyst, Dancer, and Modulicious. Catalyst sits as the grandmother of modern Perl web frameworks. So it's older, but it is very mature. It is very scalable. It is very capable. It's really strong. It runs really big websites. I love it. I came from Catalyst originally. And the thing with it is that it moves at a slower pace. So the level of stability is really high, but the level of velocity, it's slower because they're really taking their time to make sure everything is good enough for them. The design is really, I think, really cool architecture they have there. Then you have Dancer. Dancer kind of moves faster and is still considered fairly stable from our perspective. We try to not change things, not to break things at least. We try to make it very clear that when we make a change, we actually, if we really want and really need to break something, there's a whole deprecation cycle and communication to the community and warnings that tell you exactly what to do and what to change. We even have some static analysis tools to try and help you and go like, oh, this is a mistake, we want you to do this instead. But then we might still make changes. And then there's Modulicious, which, just to give a shout out, they're doing incredible work. It's around the same time as Dancer too, as Dancer as well, but it really pushes the envelope on what you could do. They wrote their own event loop and web server and JSON parser and user agent and like the whole stack. And it's really incredible work, really good stuff. I really recommend checking it out. The difference would be that while it's moving really fast, it will definitely break things earlier than Dancer or more frequently. And you kind of pick your poison, if you want to build something that you're not going to get the snazziest features right away, but it's stable for life, really, that would be Catalyst. If you want to do the exact opposite, you want to push it, you want to get all the newest, latest features at the cost of being bleeding edge and maybe getting your finger cut a little bit, that would be Modulicious. And then kind of in between, we try to aim Dancer.
Mm-hmm. So Randall, our normal host, is down sick today, but he is listening and he is commenting, making snarky comments from the chat room. And he makes the comment that too much documentation, snarky comments is what Randall does best. Too much documentation is what triggered the Camel book way back in the day. He says, someone said that on the mailing list, and Larry and Randall responded with the design for a book that had better organization, tutorials, and cookbooks. So I think that's an interesting thought, that yes, all this documentation is great, but sometimes even when we have lots and lots of documentation around a project, it's not very approachable. Is that kind of what the commenter had in mind when he said that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I throw 10 books at you, is that going to make you learn it faster? Or if I kind of condense it into, okay, you know what, read these chapters, and then the rest are reference manual, like you're not going to dive into all of them. So that will help you pick it up earlier. And also trying to guide you through it, and we tend to have these, there's like the JavaScript book, and then there's JavaScript, the good parts is like this small, and the whole idea of, okay, we'll condense, everything else is unnecessary. I don't think it's unnecessary as much as you might not care about it at the moment, and you don't know how to guide yourself through a really thick book. You don't know how to do that. And so you go to the community, you go to other people. Which chapters should I read? What should I focus on? So we're trying to make the documentation kind of split up to a way that you can kind of pick your own adventure at the level that you want, but also get the right fundamentals. So you know how a programming works. We shouldn't have to explain it to you because you know where you're at, what level you're in. Now let's just give you the basic concepts of how we do it, how our framework works, and then you could play with that and get up and going fast, versus someone who they really want to learn web programming. And we have a lot of people who work with Dancer. They come in because they want to do web programming. So
yeah, that's interesting. Just an aside, that seems to be one of the important things with learning anything, is knowing what are the fundamentals that you need to know and what is all the reference material, and keeping those two separate because reference material gets overwhelming. So I don't know if we have it queued up, but there's a little micro demo of Dancer 2. And it's 1, 2, 3. It's like 5 lines that you need to be able to get a website up and running. And it's just it's pretty impressive in its elegance. There's not much to it. I am getting kind of a Flask vibe off of it, though. Is it fair to compare Dancer 2 to Flask? Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
3 lines. You could do it in 3 lines.
So yeah, it's we definitely wanted to focus on minimalism in speed, and we don't want to have other frameworks that we've all used in the past. You pay a lot of homage to boilerplate and whatnot, and one of the things that attracted me to Dancer originally, and why I still enjoy working with it so much to this day, is it's just the right amount of framework. It doesn't get in your way. It's very expressive, and you can do some pretty powerful things with a very minimal amount of syntax.
Yeah. Sawyer, I just was whispered in my ear to ask you, what is a White Camel Award?
And how do we
White
get
Camel?
one?
White Camel.
Yes, how do we get one?
A White Camel Award is a community and a community activism, in a sense, award. So for people who do a lot for the Perl community, and there's like a whole voting thing, and the community votes basically, they might receive a White Camel Award. It happens almost every year, not every year. And I was lucky enough and possibly undeserving enough to receive one. Because mainly I see other people who got in, like, really, and with those, yeah, you know what? That's a really good compliment. So I think next time when we do when the community votes on who has done a lot for the community and deserves a White Camel Award, I'll put in your names.
Well, thank you.
Jason should be ahead of us, to be honest.
We do have a question from the chat room, and I think it probably is for Jason. The Andromedan wants to know, does Dancer 2 support WebSockets?
Yes, it does, actually. Unlike Modulicious, which supports them out of the box, we support WebSockets through a plugin to Dancer. Under the hood, Dancer talks to your web server through a protocol known as Plaque. And there are different Plaque servers depending on what your needs are. Anybody who uses Plaque PSGI out of the box gets Starman, which is a really nice and fast and low weight server. It does have some limitations to it. One of which, and you might need to jump in and help me here, Sawyer. I don't know if threading is the word that I'm looking for, but Starman out of the box doesn't support WebSockets, where another Plaque server like Twiggy, which supports libevent under the hood, is better suited to WebSockets. So in order to enable WebSockets, you need both the plugin and you need to choose the correct underlying server for your application.
Yeah, I can try and give the same answer, maybe from a different perspective. So if you have the right web server, and there are several, Twiggy is I think the best one that we would recommend. Dancer can use any one of those as long as you support a protocol called PSGI that a lot of web servers support, from Perl-based web servers, C++-based web servers. As long as they implement it, you're good to go. Apache supports it. MicroWSGI supports it. One of them, Twiggy, is actually written in Perl. Underneath the hood, it uses a really, really fast C-level framework for asynchronous code. then what Dancer will do is use full WebSockets. Dancer has complete support for asynchronous and non-blocking communication, which is really nice because you can do stuff like you can run a request, return to the user, and then do additional processing after you close the socket. So the user is done, they got the response, and you can continue working. Now, WebSockets is implemented on top of that because WebSockets is fully streaming and non-blocking. And then our recommendation is to use the Twiggy web server. It's available on CPAN. It's packaged on Ubuntu, Red Hat. I don't know which version they'll have, CentOS. So you could probably use that. Gentoo for sure.
So PSGI, that was actually originally inspired by a Python project, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, it was. It was, Python has the equivalent protocol, WSGI, and Ruby has an equivalent protocol called Rack. And a developer in Ruby came in and wrote PSGI's specification. It matches, it's very similar. And then on top of it, he wrote a set of tools called Plaque. So Perl developers tend to say Plaque or PSGI interchangeably because we basically mean use something that uses, like write something that uses Plaque that implements the PSGI protocol. It's a lot to say. So we just say either Plaque or PSGI or all together, but it really means the same. And Dancer 2 is built on top of it. So anything that supports it, you get Dancer 2 working on it, which means there are support handlers for CGI, there are support handlers for Apache, for all these web servers, and it's all for free. But then you can get all of those really nice Perl web servers that are really, really fast, really, really smart. They're based on top of C sometimes, so they're incredibly smart and fast, and it works really seamlessly.
So many of us that have been doing kind of playing with the idea of Perl for websites for a long time, Mod Perl was kind of the go-to solution. It's what I started with. In fact, I think that's about the only thing that I've used for doing Perl websites. What's the big difference between Mod Perl and something like WSGI?
Oh, so that's a really good question. The problem with Mod Perl, the nice thing about Mod Perl is that you get these objects and they come from Apache, this plugin from Apache, Mod Perl, and it gives you all of the objects that Apache uses to represent the request that the user made, the response you're going to send them, all that stuff. But then if you want to move from Apache because it's really big, it's heavy, you don't need all of the extensions, you want to use Lighty, or you want to use some other web server, you're stuck because you need Mod Perl, because Mod Perl comes from Apache and it's also your framework for writing a website. So now you have to rewrite all of your code. So you want to use CGI. Okay, fine. Now you use the CGI protocol and then, something that understands that. PSGI or WSGI in Python and Rack in Ruby, they came to kind of fill a niche where let's just have one definition for how a web server acts and how a web application acts, or a web framework that the web application will be written on. And once you have the specification in the middle, you can implement your web framework using that specification, and it will work on any server that supports it. So now you're not stuck on Apache because you're not using any Apache specific things. Apache just supports the same protocol. So it's kind of like one protocol to rule all of those different implementations of the web servers. So for us in Dancer 2, I don't have to write Dancer 2 for CGI or for Apache or for anything at all other than the protocol of PSGI. As long as I write it for it, your Dancer 2 code will work anywhere. And that's why you would want to use a framework that is based either on Plaque or PSGI. It's interchangeable.
Excellent. That sounds really, really good, because obviously we don't want to be duplicating all the effort and stuff. So just for a moment, guys, I'm going to put a pin in that because we're going to get back to that discussion very shortly. But I need to take a moment to thank our second sponsor for today. So here we go. This episode of Floss Weekly is brought to you by NetScout, accelerating innovation and operational agility that can meet the demands of today's digital world starts with a bold new IT strategy. As the pace of change continues to exponentially increase, so too does the risk of failure, raising the stakes for CIOs, architects, and IT operations. Simply put, digital transformation has changed the game, but NetScout has a different perspective, one that was built for the era of digital and data center transformation. It's called Visibility Without Borders. This real-time visibility extends to wherever your technology infrastructure and business applications reside. As the world leader in transforming packet data, NetScout's smart data delivers high resolution and continuous monitoring across any network, data center, cloud, 5G, and more. Already in use and securing some of the world's most critical commercial and public service infrastructures, NetScout's next-generation level of visibility provides the holistic perspective that the IT teams are seeking. See more at netscout.com. That's NETSCOUT.com. And we thank them for the support of Floss Weekly. All right, then. So let's get back into the discussion then. So we kind of moved on a little bit onto hosting there, haven't we? Which is good, because I wanted to ask a bit about deploying someone. You talked about mod Perl and so on. How would I go about deploying? What would I need to deploy a Dancer application, and how easy is it to scale these things?
Jason, are you taking this one, or?
It might be a curveball. I just threw it out there. Sorry, I didn't direct it at you. But yeah, Jason, sorry, you go first.
From my own experience of deploying, most of our applications are use something called a CPAN file, which specifies that when I want to deploy my application, it's like install the modules that are in the CPAN file, and then I pretty much have everything that I need to run my application at that point. And my Dancer applications always end up running behind Nginx or HA proxy or whatever load balancer I happen to be using at the time. What I'm doing currently, we've got a handful of servers running Dancer 2, and we have Nginx sitting in front of that. And when we need to add capacity, all we have to do is just add another node in the back end and tell Nginx that it's back there, and we can scale our application up as much as we need to. We have another project going on right now where instead of using virtual machines to run our application, that we're building out containerized infrastructure, and Dancer works really well in that. It's real easy to build a Docker container that has Perl and your Dancer application inside of it, and all the benefits that you get from a containerized environment, deployment, updates, uptime, all that's available to you.
Excellent. So, I mean, it's just like deploying almost any other application. It sounds like you've not got any specific, like, really difficult things that we need to satisfy or anything like that. I mean, so who's using Dancer right now? Have you got any big deployments out there that you'd like to show off about, or anything, any interesting uses of it that you want to tell us about?
I won't name names specifically, but I do happen to work for a large insurance company that uses Dancer under the hood, and we use it for generating PDF documents of insurance enrollments. We use it for starting jobs that generate XML. We have a bunch of in-house tools that are written with Dancer. I know there are some large banks that are using it. I know some media companies are using it. A game publishing company uses it for all of their publishing tools, actually, that are all web-based. Some other, Booking.com is one of the largest ones, cPanel. There's a lot of fairly large companies that are using it.
We also have... there's at least, so at Booking.com, there's some use of it, and there's another, we were just talking before this show, there's another insurance company that I was aware of that Jason wasn't, that uses Dancer. Shutterstock uses it internally. There are a lot of these companies that we don't know about until we have our conferences, and suddenly people show up and go, oh, actually, I wrote a project for an entire video library for a city in Europe. I don't remember which country, and it all runs Dancer. And another person says, yeah, my contract with the U.S. government actually implemented in Dancer. We're like, really? What? And Excellent.
Yeah, that's really good.
We do have a part on the website where we call it like the dance floor, and that's where we put project people, right? But usually it's not the biggest, like, fanciest thing, because then in like a big company, they want to get certain permission to share and yada, yada.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do love that you can keep this whole dance metaphor going into loads of different ways, like the dance floor, and then you must have jokes about breakdancing in there, I imagine, or someone being a break dancer. I don't know. Maybe that would be my role. I think in this. Not we'll see.
We now have one thing. We now have this joke. Jason, read it down.
Yeah. So sticking with the strange things that come out of my mind to do with this, when I was thinking about this earlier, I was thinking of hosting and so on, and a way you could maybe build a little business around hosting instances of Dancer, and if they were private instances of a cloud, they could be private dancers. Then we get Tina Turner involved, and we can get the song on board, and then you've got private dancer. It's a web host for money or something. I don't know, but sorry. There you go.
Sir, I think you are going to join the core team from now on. Lead marketer.
Yeah. Well, if you need someone to talk and come up with silly ideas, I can manage that. Yeah. I'll just need to get Tina on the phone, and it'll be fine. Don't worry. I'm sure she's a massive fan of Perl. I heard she loves the Camel book anyway. So we should ask. I was curious. I mean, so. The dancer seems to be doing really well, but what's the kind of limitations of it right now? It's the dirty question that nobody wants to ask. Do you ever get pitched a kind of a project or an idea that you think maybe something like Catalyst would still be better for? And again, I'm
for sure
that at Sawyer, I think. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Okay, yeah, sure. So yeah, definitely. I think we're very open about limitations. That's why we're always happy to talk about other frameworks. For Modulicious, I think. Yeah, I really recommend checking it out. For Catalyst, a lot of us came from Catalyst. So our limitations would be, I think, I'm going to try two areas. First is that not every new thing comes into Dancer right away. Most likely it will take some time until we figure out how we want to implement it, how we want it to look like. Modulicious has WebSockets straight out of the box. For Dancer 2, you have to install a plugin. It takes about, I don't know, like 5 to 10 seconds. So it's complicated, but you do need to use a plugin. I remember for a long time, WebSockets was the thing that when I used to go to conferences, people would talk to me and they would say, oh, we really want WebSockets in Dancer 2 before we implemented it. And I remember asking, what are you going to use it for? And they could never answer it. So it took us a while to really kind of, okay, let's get our ass in gear. And eventually someone wrote a plugin in a weekend and it works. So that's kind of it. For asynchronous stuff, streaming, non-blocking, all of those things, Dancer can do, but it doesn't have the nicest syntax, which we actually talked about, that we're thinking of trying to find like a snazzier way to express this for the user. Also, I think Catalyst is very good for really visualizing how you're going to architect a very, very, very big and heavy website. Because you're thinking of a lot of components in there and a lot of complicated routing. And in Dancer 2, you're going to have to figure it out a little bit yourself because it's kind of bare bones. It's not it's not one of those, you have a web framework that looks for a specific subroutine in a specific file that has specific structure, and then it kind of maps out all of your routes. Instead, in Dancer, you kind of have to say, I have a get, and it's going to have this path, and I'm going to put it in this file. So you have to be more... that's how it doesn't get in your way, but it also means you have to write this. Whereas a lot of frameworks, specifically Catalyst is a really good example where like there's a certain structure that it expects you to maintain. So it's a bit more similar to Java and to the things that people like there of being able to get it. It's just specified in it so inherently that you don't have to write the specification yourself. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm losing it.
It definitely does make sense. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question because we ask people these things like, what are the limitations of your project? And I think it's hard for people to, I feel a bit bad asking the question, but I mean, as you basically were just saying, it's not always right. You won't always be right for every kind of every application. It makes sense, and it seems like it's also you're developing really quickly as well. So you can move into maybe different areas and so on. IRC chat is still kind of is chattering away there, and I couldn't help. I'm sorry, I'm dragging us back to the silly puns based around Dancer, but somebody also suggested we could have a minimized version, like a small version, and call it Tiny Dancer, and then get Elton John involved in some way.
Brilliant.
Like an ultra portable version, runs off a USB stick. I don't know. Tiny Dancer. Who knows?
I don't know how much more minimal we can make it though.
Yeah. Very true.
I've just gotten a call from our sponsors, and they've requested that we stop doing silly puns.
Okay.
Question for you guys: is there a business model around this? Do you guys make money from Dancer 2, or is this just a labor of love for you guys?
Speaking for myself, yeah. Speaking for myself, it's definitely a labor of love. And the first time I used Dancer, I was pretty hooked on it. And then once I started poking around under the hood at Dancer 2 and could see the things that I was really able to do, it's just something that I've wanted to be part of, and I'm excited to be part of. So as Sawyer said, it'd always be nice to get paid for it, but I'm happy to keep doing it just because I like the people that I'm working with. I like our community, and I like the product.
Yeah.
Sawyer?
Yeah, for me, it's very much it's labor of love is such a good description for it. And I don't know how far I could take it, but it really is great appreciation for the people that I get to work with, like Jason, and the Dancer community. Like, we have a very extensive standard of conduct, for example, that no one ever contested. It was very warmly accepted. Like, oh, we've never had anything that would technically warrant this, but we all wanted to be clear of what we expect from each other as an environment. It's such an inclusive and happy community, or a sub-community within the Perl community. And I have a lot of love for the Perl community. This is, I go to a lot of conferences mainly just to see people, but the Dancer community is like a microcosm of everything that I love about the Perl community. And the users are incredible. The developers are incredible. And I get to participate in that. I get to feel that. And to me, that is, that's a lot. Like, I love working on Dancer, but like the work that I do with my peers, whether they're users or part of the core team, it's just something that I adore, and I'm so grateful having.
Yeah, it's cool. So I again, I don't know which of you guys would be best to answer this, but what is the strangest or most unexpected use you've seen that somebody's used Dancer for?
I'm digging.
I think the government.
This one. Thinking.
The government website was new for me. The video library for a city, that was kind of new for me. I wasn't expecting someone to do like a full video library solution in Dancer. I think we didn't plan out for Dancer to be a very service, kind of a service-oriented web framework. So for some people, the web is just a way to make services available. So like microservices and stuff like that with Dancer. And I didn't expect that, because people usually would use Dancer when you want to serve HTML or at most REST. But then if you have complicated services, usually you use something like, I think Modulicious would be very good at it. And there's a bunch of these things. There's something in Erlang, I think, that was also ported to Perl. But I've seen people use that Dancer. I've seen one person who implemented a full WebSocket proxy between two WebSocket, like client and server. And that was really nice. That was really cool. I did not expect that. It was about 10 lines of code. So that was kind of nice. And I implemented once a drum machine to show how it could do asynchronous and fully non-blocking things. So I implemented, as an example, at a Dancer conference, I implemented a full drum machine that, like, you make a request and it starts drumming beats, and it maintains different beats and at different lengths, and it was kind of nice, because I was studying how to drum at the time, so it was a good example.
I think that wins for the best answer to that question, maybe of all time.
Yeah.
Jason, I've been informed that you're actually a pilot, and apparently, and I didn't know this, apparently Randall is as well. And he says, well, what certifications does Jason have?
I am a new pilot. I've only been flying for a couple of years. I'm only qualified to fly a small single-engine aircraft under VFR rules. So I was working on my instrument rating when I moved down here. Life has gotten in the way a little bit since then, so it is something that I mean to get back to. But it is truly one of the passions of my life. I've really come to enjoy it.
Yeah, getting a pilot's license is definitely on my bucket list. But I was just commenting in the back chat. It's like I need to make more money while spending less time at it before I could start doing things like getting a pilot's license.
Yeah, flying and saving money are diametrically opposed to one another. It's like you can't really do one well if you're doing the other. So, every 10 years or so, I get the itch to do something new. When I turned 30, I learned how to play ice hockey. When I turned 40, I learned how to fly aircraft. And I've joked that at 50, I'm going to learn how to jump out of the aircraft. My wife does not find that as funny as I do, but it is something that's in the cards.
Yeah, maybe you need to combine them and some some air hockey kind of plane jumping. I don't know. There must be something we could do here, some kind of like way of combining those. So Randall apparently, I didn't know either. So Jonathan, like you, I didn't know that Randall was a pilot as well. Apparently, he says that Jason will understand this. He has a PPASELIA. I hope I'm not just spelling something out there. Apparently, he's instrument rated or something. He has an instrument rating. So there you go. And speaking of instrument rating, what a segue that was. I want to ask Sawyer about music because you're a musician. So I'm a musician as well, and I'm always keen to talk to people about music. So what instruments do you play? How did you get into that, and where can we find you music?
Wow. Hopefully nowhere.
Hopefully nowhere.
I studied. So I learned how to play guitar. Started with classic guitar, and then I moved to electric and bass and drums and vocals. And it kind of depends. I like very varying genres of music. So I like really acoustic and quiet and classical music, and then it goes into rock and metal and hardcore and like really violent, loud music, and it really kind of oscillates between those. And then I play whatever instrument is fun. I really enjoy bass, and I think I'm okay with bass. I did get to put out some records. It was nice. And drums is fun, but I'm not at the level that I want to be at drums. And I don't get to practice as much now. So I don't know. What do you like playing?
What do I like playing? I play all kinds of things. I've played in various bands and stuff, and I play bass, guitar, drums, piano, keyboards, harmonica occasionally. Harmonica is really easy though. I mean, I don't want to belittle anyone. I don't want to upset anyone who plays harmonica who's going to tell me how hard it is. But it's probably the easiest one I've tried, if I'm honest. If you're playing just a standard blues harp, yeah. But it's good stuff. I think there's a good crossover between. There seems to be quite a large crossover, in fact, between developers and engineers and stuff and musicians. It's a similar kind of thing. So we're starting to kind of run towards the end of our time. So I need to ask you guys: is there anything that we didn't get to, that we didn't cover, that you think you'd like our audience to know about Dancer 2? I'll start with you, Jason. Anything you think that we didn't cover, or are you happy?
I think you poked all the most relevant bits of it. I guess the thing that I always like to emphasize is that it's the right amount of framework. I feel that doesn't get in your way. It doesn't impose its way upon you. It leaves you free to build web applications the way that you want.
Excellent. Sawyer, similar kind of question, I suppose, for you.
Okay. So yeah, I think So if you've never done Perl, this might get you hooked on it because it's very like nice, beautiful syntax. And then suddenly it goes kind of off the deep end, like, whoa, I just wrote one line that does half of my stuff. So that's kind of the Perl side for you. And we also have, so if you're coming to the Perl conference in the US that we have every year, I think the next year it's going to be in Houston, Texas, I believe. So if you look for the Perl Conference North America, you're probably going to find it. And we usually have a full day of dancer training from scratch, where we teach you everything, how it works. We write sample. It's a hands-on workshop, and then at the end of it, we actually write a full thing. And I host it with another colleague of mine and friend and core developer, Miki Nasliachi, a shout out there. And if you're interested, if you want to come to Texas, to Houston to check out the Perl conference, you will probably get it at a very, very cheap price, because we don't gain any money from it. So we do it for free, another labor of love to help each other and technologists. But the conference might charge like a very menial amount just for the room that it costs to host it. So I really recommend that. It's usually around June.
Excellent, and that leads me into another question I was going to ask. How, if people see the show, they hear the show, and they think, I'd really like to get involved with that. What's the best way for them to get involved with the project and come and maybe contribute and help out?
So we're on. So if you're looking for the answer to on metacpan.org, metacpan.org, that's where you go to for all Perl stuff. You'll find the project there. There's even a chat button, and you open RSC to the chat to talk to us. I'm not always there, I swear. I promise. It's a kind of an addiction, I think, RSC, and I'm not always there. But you also have a link there to the GitHub, and on GitHub you can open tickets, you can clone it. We accept patches in any form, so if you join the mailing list that you'll have from the website and from the documentation on MetaCPAN, you could just join the mailing list and send an email. We accept patches in personal emails. We accept patches as a line of message on IRC of I found a problem, here it is. We accept patches as pull requests. If you're interested in working on something and you see a ticket that you think you could work on, just reach out to us and tell us, I'd like to work on this, and we'd be happy to guide you through it, because we're very happy with people trying on how to assist in core. And if you're interested, if you want to learn some Perl, and this is a good chance for you. So hit us up and we'll be happy to guide you through it and help you kind of resolve this issue, learn a bit, and then maybe the next one you do yourself. And I mean, it's a slippery slope. You might end up joining core too.
You may end up having to get Sawyer sleeping on your couch. Is that right? So you can qualify for
exactly.
Excellent. And we have two favorite questions that Randall asks every guest that comes on, and I have to ask you each these two questions. Otherwise, we will get angry emails from listeners and so on. So I'll start with you, Jason. I don't know if this may be a redundant question, actually. I think given what we're talking about. What's your favorite scripting language, and what's your favorite text editor?
My favorite text editor, far and again, is Vim, and I know it is the subject of many a holy war, but my brain and Vim are kind of one. I don't know that I could develop software the way that I could without Vim, and favorite scripting language is always going to be Perl. I have fun with Python. I'm intrigued by Ruby. I don't hold a lot of fondness for PHP, but I try to learn one new language a year, and I always come back to, and I've probably never really left Perl for any significant amount of time. It just it fits the way, like Vim, it fits the way that my brain works. And I don't know if that says anything good about me, but that's the reality of my software development career. So,
excellent. Thanks very much for that. And Sawyer, same two questions for you.
Yeah, so I'd like to say my favorite scripting language is Perl, but I do not consider Perl a scripting language, since it has a full compilation phase, and it creates an AST, an op tree of sorts, and then it walks that properly like a proper programming language. But I will say that when I need to write scripts, I will use this programming language called Perl. For the same reason, really, as Jason, it kind of fits into how I think. It allows me to express myself very freely, and I can choose to write the cleanest code I can with it. I have a fondness for all languages, really. I think every language has its own, just like spoken language, its own charm and beauty and idioms and expressions and ways of thinking that you just cannot do in a different language. And I adore that. The longer I program and do technical work, the more languages, spoken languages I learn. So it's like French, Spanish, Hebrew, English, Dutch. It's I get appreciation for languages in general. I think the next language I might want to learn would be Haskell, actually. But when I need to write like small things, as much as I need to write like really big, well-architected things, I choose Perl. For editor, I also have a similar notion with editors. I love editors. All are great. I don't go into these words because I appreciate all of them. I am a Vim user. I wouldn't say that I'm a very good Vim user. I know a few things. And one of my interests in the future is also to learn Emacs, because I think it will make me think differently. And I really like that idea.
Excellent. Well, Randall will be pleased with that answer. I think you're right. I mean, we get too kind of bogged down in some of these holy wars, as someone described them. But whatever the tool is right for you, that you find best for you, is what we would advocate, I suppose, provided that it's open source. We do try and say that. but there you go.
Agreed.
All right. Yeah. So unfortunately, we are running out of time, guys. I'm sure we could talk a lot longer about many things. But for now, we're going to have to say thank you very much. So thank you, Jason. Thank you, Sawyer, for coming on and talking to us. It's been really great.
Thank you
very much for having us.
And you gave me a chance to talk to Jason a little bit more. So I never get enough at conferences. So now we got to chat a little bit. So it was great.
Excellent stuff. All right, and so that was great. That was Sawyer X and sorry, I've lost Jason's surname and Chrome Dome. I've got it down. I should remember that, shouldn't I? And Jason Crome of I should remember that because I have a Chrome Dome for viewers on the video stream. They'll see that I'm follically challenged these days. All right, and so that was great. So we talked about Perl Dancer. Jonathan, what did you think?
Interesting project. It reminds me a lot of Flask, but then you get to write stuff in Perl, which I mean is always fun. Perl is a fun language. I don't reach for it very often anymore, but I do have a warm affection for Perl. It was one of the early things that I did. I mean, it's cool though. It's fun to see these guys that do this really kind of a professional level project just out of a labor of love. And I think there's something to be said for that, of not making it all about dollars and cents, but just because you enjoy it. But it's interesting, and I think next time I go to write something, maybe I'll reach for this and play with it a little bit and see how it works, see what I think.
Yeah, and it's it looks really fun to play with. I did have a play around before this afternoon as I was preparing for the show. I had a quick play around and did some of the quick tutorials and stuff. And it's definitely something. I mean, I don't know it. I need to brush up my Perl skills if I have any. I need to brush up my Perl skills. But I definitely would have a look at it if I was doing something, as you say, maybe something that I might have done in Flask in the past or something similar. I think it would definitely be fun to look at. All right, and so we should talk about what we've got coming up on the show, because Randall actually, although he's on his sickbed, he's still been busy adding more guests to the show. He's that dedicated that he just can't stop adding guests to the show. So we've got next week, in fact, we've got, I'm going to get this name wrong. I really apologize for this. I think it's Gilles, or it could be Giles. I think it's Gilles. It sounds French. Shahad or Shahade. I really apologize. We'll find out next week how badly wrong I've got that name. But it's coming on to tell us about a project called Open SMTPD, which I'm guessing is some kind of SMTP daemon or daemon or whatever. That's next week. That is August the 21st, Wednesday, August the 21st. And the following week, we have William Woodruff and Nicole Harris, who are coming on to talk about PyPy security, which is interesting. So that'll be on August the 28th. So lots of stuff coming up. If you want to watch the show live, you want to take part in the chat room, listen to the show, all of that stuff, we really appreciate having people come and chat along. It's at 9:30 in the morning, 9:30 in the AM. That's West Coast time, Leo time, as we like to call it, every week at live.twit.tv. You can find us there, and you'll find, if you go to twit.tv, you find on the website all the information about the chat room and all the other stuff you need to do to get in there. You can find us on Twitter as well. It's at Floss Weekly is the Twitter handle if you want to tweet us or you want to follow what we're up to on there. If you think of a project or you know of a project that you think I'd really like to see on Floss Weekly or hear on Floss Weekly, then that's great. We're always interested to hear about new things. And the best way to do that is to basically contact the project yourself, contact the project leader if you can, and have them email Randall, and then Randall can get it straight to the top of the list. His address is listed, I believe, on the webpage, but it is merlin@stonehenge.com. That's merlin@stonehenge.com if you want to have them email him, and we can get the people on the show, because we're always keen to know what you want to hear and what you want to see on the show. That's great, and many of the shows that you've seen have come about from just that kind of method. All right, and so very quickly, because we are overrunning a bit, I want to remind people from a personal point of view to go and check out ogcamp.org, which is an event that I run in the UK. It's an open source conference. It's coming up in October 19th and 20th, so it's only about 2 months away now. Tickets are available right now now. If you go to oggcamp.org, that's oggcamp.org, there's a list of speakers on there. We've got all kinds of cool stuff coming up. I won't go on about it too much, but you can find out more on the website. Jonathan, anything you want to mention while we're here?
Sure. I'll plug my Twitter handle is JP_Bennett, and tweeting about security things, and occasionally when I can't help myself, some political things show up there as well. And then check out hackaday.com. I do a weekly security column there. It runs every Friday. And interestingly, as we look at the list of things coming up, the PyPI security, that's something I've written about a few times. So looking forward to that. Maybe I'll have to throw my hat into the ring to co-host that show. So that'll be fun. But yeah, follow me in those couple of places.
Great. It sounds like you could be just the man to give us a bit more insight on that then. All right. And so, Jonathan, thank you very much for coming on. And as I said, becoming like the backbone of the show. You're the guy who never kind of lets us down. And it's always great to do the show with you. So thanks very much for that.
Yes, it's great being self-employed. I can rewrite the schedule and be here whenever I need to. And Dan, it's always a pleasure to do it with you. We don't get to very often. And don't like to, because that means that Randall is sick, but it is always a pleasure.
Exactly, yeah, and Randall will be back next week. We hope he's sure. He's very adamant that he will be back in the big host's chair next week, and he's going to be more careful about what he eats. So there you go, or where he eats. So I'm sure he'll be back very soon. But for now, I think that'll do us for today. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Floss Weekly.